Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Run Remedy is the musical project of Robin Koob, self-proclaimed New Jersey girl trash turned into UK indie princess. In 2025, she released the single Girls from the album Xtian Skate Night, which was also released in that same year. Robin's particular flavor of Americana is laced with equal parts grief and fun-loving irony, exploring the complexities of familial rejection, patriotism, and living in the shadows of cliches. With a penchant for both candor and wisecracks, her songs speak to empathetic listeners who, as Robin explains, enjoy a cheesy joke as much as a good cry. With her violin and ever-expanding pedalboard, Robin has hustled her way from America's East Coast to Asia, Germany, and the UK. She has collaborated with artists across a full spectrum of genres, building her own creative voice that defies simple definition. With plays on BBC Radio Kent and BBC Six Music, Run Remedy has recently supported Marie Naffa, Julia, and Morgan Way. Up next on Celeb Savant, we've got Run Remedy.
Where in the world are you and how are you doing?
I'm currently in my chosen home of Manchester in the UK, and I am sleepy but happy today.
How and where does the stage name Run Remedy come from?
Oh, it's a good question to start with. It's a bit of an inside joke between me and my mom. I'm a violinist and would often run away from contentious moments in the household or any kind of confrontation by going to music, running upstairs to remedy my soul, as she used to say, by playing music and writing. It became a bit of a joke many years down the line when I left the US entirely. And she was like, yeah, you're off doing this Run Remedy thing. And I thought I would just tease her about it and make that my artist name eventually when I got her blessing in a way to write my own music.
Let's rewind. At what age, whether as a child or teenager, did you feel cool? I want to be in this creative world. And how did that journey progress?
I fell in love with the violin the first time I saw one in a classroom. I don't know why. I was totally fascinated by it and begged my parents to let me play, and they said no for good reason. Violins are expensive. So after 2 years or so of begging, they finally agreed to let me rent one. And then from that point, they never asked me to practice. I was obsessed, and I went all the way through university with my classical blinders on. Yeah, and just all the way through university orchestra, doing orchestral tours until I had a big paradigm shift and an injury and could no longer do classical. I was heartbroken about it, but I started working on other things and picking up the guitar and realized I could still play the violin, but I can't do Paganini anymore, right? So I went shoegaze instead and got a bunch of pedals and started making a lot of really wacky rackets, and have had so much fun being a session violinist and playing with all kinds of bands and projects, and learned how to fiddle and just do what I can, even if I can't do that one thing anymore.
Obviously, this is a rhetorical question because we're in the journey and path that we're currently in this moment, in this time. Do you feel that by the injury allowed you to expand into all these different genres and aspects of the music world? And if you wouldn't have had it, you wouldn't, I'm not saying it was a good thing, but you would have stayed in the orchestra in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only look back on it and see it as an opportunity to grow now. That's what tragedy is. If you're lucky enough to survive it, is an opportunity to grow.
Absolutely. And also not to allow it to become your storyline, because a lot of people in the world, it's now, okay, this is now me equals the storyline of whatever happened. It's about, okay, the acceptance, understanding, growth, and moving forward. But it's everyone's journey, how they accept or project challenges and what their life situations.
Well, I can't sit still, so I never was going to, even if sad or difficult things have happened to me. I need to keep moving on.
So you were doing session musician, playing with all these different bands and different things. When did you start thinking, okay, I want to now start creating my own music?
I'm afraid to say it's a bit of a sad story,
Okay.
but hopeful as well. I was living abroad and working around East Asia, China, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Germany. I don't know. I was hopping around all over the place. My mom got sick and I went to go look after her as she was passing away in hospice.
I'm sorry.
And thank you. And she scolded me. She said, when are you going to stop doing everybody else's music and do your own?
Okay.
Goodness sake, right? But I said, Mom, if I do my own music, I'm going to dive into some of the harder stuff about our family life growing up in the church and me leaving and some of that, more challenging material. And she left and she was like, go ahead, I'll be dead. She had a great sense of humor. And she's someone who always taught me how to interweave like the goof with the grief, which is part of how I write as well.
I love that. The goof with the grief. That should be a title of a song.
It's in my copy at the moment.
There we go. I love that. Pre to this discussion and this journey, had you dabbled in writing and creating your own stuff or not? Was that the paradigm shift that pushed you to do it?
I'd always been writing. I'd always been writing my own songs, and I just didn't. It was really funny. There's newspaper clippings somewhere in New Jersey in the suburbs about me winning the John Lennon songwriting competition in my region when I was 16 years old. And the big tour bus came, and I swear there's a newspaper clipping in the Applebee's in my hometown still over booth 6. But I was so focused on classical and being a performer that I had too much imposter syndrome about songwriting, even after getting that kind of young accolade. So I was like, no, I'm going to stick to what I'm really good at. But, then fate stepped in and was like, guess what?
Even though you won that award at that time, did you not think that you were good at writing a song?
Oh, no. I mean, even now when I listen to the song that won that award, it's pretty cringy. And I mean, I still have a healthy level of humility and cringe with the songs I write now. But I'm just not as afraid of showing it to people because life's too short. So
you had that paradigm shift, and then what were the next steps? You just started writing and creating, and then you just decided to focus professionally on it?
I guess so. I mean, I was already playing in a lot of groups. When I first moved to Manchester, I always go to open music nights and I just say, you want strings with that? And start making friends and building a community and being as useful to others as I can be. Just because I'm a firm believer in, as artists, we all rise together. And ended up playing in, different signed groups, doing tours in the UK, doing things like going back to the US for South by, just seeing how the industry is looking as an artist and how I wanted to approach my own songwriting based off of all the knowledge I'd gained and hopefully paid enough attention to. I'm a happy, slow burn, conscious creator. I'm not going to just jump into anything right away. I want to take my time. I want to make sure what I'm doing is authentic to me and anybody I'm working with. So I've just slowly started writing. I do my own production. I have my own little studio. I've been learning so much. I've learned, I take drum lessons, so I know how to communicate to the drummers in my band better, and not necessarily to be a drummer, but to be a good drum mom, drummer's mom, or Mom Remedy, as my band teasingly called me. I want everybody to be having a nice time that works with me, and I want to work with as many people as possible and play lovely shows where people really want to listen and, give a hoot.
What do you enjoy about performing live?
That's where the magic is, right? You've put in the hours, hopefully, with the people you're playing with, and you have these wonderful moments where you look across the stage and you're in sync with somebody. You're in the flow of it. That's the flow state. And I've never had as much joy as I've had performing music on the stage with my friends. I mean, I'm always happy to do solo spots too, but when you're playing music with others, I mean, that's what it's all about, really. That's why I'm doing anything I can, is to have more opportunities to play music for my friends and with my friends. That's the joy.
I'm that dude normally right up in front. I'll take my phone out for 1 or 2 videos, 1 or 2 photos. I put it away. I notice a lot of people these days are photoing, tweeting, posting for a lot of time of the show. From your perspective of the stage, potentially seeing a bunch of phones instead of a bunch of eyes, do you find that takes away from that moment you reference, or it's just where society is at this time?
I think I've been lucky. I do see that more, but I think it's just a form of excitement that people are having right now. And I see more and more venues that I've played at instituting things like, hey guys, put your phones away. Let's be here in the moment right now. And I'm mostly happy that they're not talking through the set.
Yes. Okay.
I hope for their sake that they'll be able to put the phone down, but they're engaging with me in a way that's exciting for them at that point in time for them. Yeah, ideally, everyone's just looking at me with their real eyes and their real ears. But, I'm happy to compromise, and I'm just happy that they're there and that they're having a good time the way they have a good time, even if it's not how I would.
Oh, I like that. It's about just being respectful of everyone else and their path and then allowing them to be.
Yeah, hopefully they're not blocking everybody else's views with their phone screens. Yeah, then I might bring my old middle school teacher self out and be like, okay, kids.
I bring out my teacher because sometimes I go to theater shows and I go to movies and they're on their cell phones during that. I'm like, this is where I'm like, okay, put it away now, because you're now disturbing me in my enjoyment by having that on, it just drives me mad.
I think my threshold really changed after living in China, and you'll never be the same after you've sat next to a couple eating raw buttered squid with plastic baggies on their hands in the movie theater.
Oh my word! In the movie theater, okay.
Yeah, while the movie's playing, everything else is kind of fine now.
So what's coming up over the next period of time?
Yeah, my debut album came out, Xtian Skate Night, with an X. And I've just been sort of basking in that a little bit, or floating. I'm so proud of that it's out there. And well, actually, I'm kind of a work ahead kind of gal. So I've already written, produced, and mixed the next EP, but I'm gonna just breathe a little bit and think about the best way, like when and how I want to release that, because it has a strong story as well. I only write songs because I'm chewing on an idea that I need to process, right? It's my own music therapy. I think that's true for a lot of singer-songwriters, right? It's nice that that's happened. Like, that's kind of ready to go when I feel like it's the right time. And I'm 5 songs into the album after that. So I'm always writing, I'm always working, I'm always producing. And then when I feel like I'm ready to rev up into a release cycle and a tour cycle, I have a wonderful little team that I'm growing to help me make the healthiest decisions for that, for my own time, energy, mental well-being, and for anybody that's joining me in the process, right? I just want everyone to be having a nice time.
Why, though, you reference that album now, EP, and then album? Why not album? Sometimes
you want to take a big bite, you've got a lot to say, and sometimes just a little snack of something to say, Yeah, I'm only writing songs because I've got something to say. Okay. So with this album, it's a story. I guess I'm kind of old school. They're concepts, right? The last album is my story of realizing that I was queer, but being in the church and the conflict that arose from that in a conservative suburban area of the States. And it's the beginning of that realization to me leaving home. And each song is a part of that story between age 13 and 17. The next EP is called Not at the Table, and each song is a reflection on something that isn't considered polite dinner conversation. So political strife or female safety or nationalism, just things that you're not supposed to talk about at the table. And now I'm working on songs that also seem to have congealed around a certain concept. I don't know. It's just how I work. That's how it goes for me anyway. Everyone's different.
I love me a CD. I still budget for my CDs. For me, it's an energy exchange to you guys for all the hard work that you do. I love the journey of the packing, the unpacking at least, songs from 1 to whatever number, the thank yous, the booklet. I'm unsure if you're aware, I'm sure you may or may not be, massive upsurge in physical around the world. A couple of years ago in the UK, 5.9 million vinyls sold, the biggest since 1990. Last year, also in the UK, there's a basket of products that they gauge for exchange purposes. There needs to be a certain number of exchanges daily for a product to be in the basket. And because of the upsurge of CDs are now back in the basket. And the research is showing that it's the teenagers, the younger people who are diving into this world. And then we've also got the streaming platforms that people consume music on. What are your perceptions of the landscape at the moment?
It's something that changes daily for me. You know, I try not to focus too much on streams. And I have a good friend that works in data and helps me to analyze things like my Spotify streams and pay more attention to the fact that I'm being downloaded to personal playlists more than just the sheer number of it, or that I have almost a point to replay for my songs. I'm like, okay, it's not just how many streams, it's how people are engaging. So that's important for me as an artist to like stay balanced with my point of view on it and not get too obsessed with, I need this number, right? Yeah. This is the first time I've made physicals for my own music, and just taking them around in the last few weeks, I've been so delighted and surprised at how many people are buying CDs. I went and did just a little solo spot and almost everybody bought a CD. I was just so touched, you know? And so there is something so much more rewarding about that, at least from my point of view, of handing them a physical object, engaging with somebody face to face and giving them that thing. I think it's a stressful time for everybody in the industry, whether you're a musician or a manager or a label, someone running a label. The piece of pie is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and nobody's quite sure yet where they're going to be able to continue from. Like, how are we going to eat? So I have another job. I have another 3 jobs.
Oh, wow. What else do you do?
I have a lot of experience working internationally. So I work in linguistics a great deal.
Okay.
Do a lot of translation. And yeah, I'm an international corporate trainer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I do a bit of studio work for other people as well, now that I've learned more and more about it. You know, especially young women, to be honest with you, who are maybe a little too intimidated to dive into doing production. I'm like, we can do it too. We can press the buttons. We can make the choices. That doesn't really pay very well, but I can still consider it a job worth mentioning as a job.
I think everyone's hustling, you know, for me as well. I teach spinning classes. I've got a full-time work job. This is my side hustle. So yeah, we all mixing and matching and just doing our thing.
Yeah, we're just a bunch of scrappy dudes, aren't we?
Creating different pieces of puzzles, but which is cool because I'd say a number of years ago, people defined themselves in this box. They're a doctor, they're an accountant, they're this and that. But the picture I like to see is that of an octopus. So I'm the body of the octopus, and I choose to have as many tentacles as I want. I can have 5 or 10 or 100. And I think back in the day, people were like, okay, partner, accountant, and, you know, they were stuck in that societal box of just being that. Where these days, you know, there's so many, you can have as many tentacles as you want. It's your choice. If you want 1 or if you want 100.
Yeah.
That's just the picture I see.
I'll try to manifest that in my mind when I start feeling a little overwhelmed. I'll be like, grow a new tentacle. It's time.
I like that, yes.
I always liked this image I got growing up. My family talked a lot about when you're young and you're learning everything, you're taking things in and you're growing from the outside in. And then at some point you take all of that information in and it sort of fills a certain space within you and you start living from the inside out onto others. So whatever work you're doing or passion you're pursuing or relationship you're building, you're bringing that concentration of yourself into it. So instead of being defined by these outer sources,
yes,
you're defined by who you are with and what you bring to those outer sources.
Okay, yes.
But I think tentacles is a much faster image.
I love this game. I know if I had to ask you this question in 2 minutes, 5 years, 5 hours, I know your answer will be different every time. I understand that and I recognize that. I'm not saying favorite. I'm saying top of mind. If you had to push play to 5 artists once we finish this conversation, who would those artists be? And if you can think of specific songs of theirs, what songs would you play?
Well, my ride or die is always going to be Elliott Smith because his work was something that hit me when I was 15 or so that made me think, oh, I want to create something. I want to create something like this. I remember sneaking into my school gym with my friends, putting some music on and lying on the gym floor and it echoing around the whole space. And it was Sweet Adeline by Elliott Smith. And when the first sort of chorus comes in, Sweet Adeline, just shaking me, like the dynamics of that. I was looking for surprise dynamics and like how much they make you feel, whether it was classical music with Dvorak or that was a really big moment for me. So I'm always really grateful to Elliott Smith and his songwriting. I'm obsessed right now on the opposite spectrum with another artist that I've met named Katie Kirby. And she's from Texas and she's just doing what I want to be doing better than me. And I can accept that and admire her for it. She's reaching this beautiful space of like live sound capture with her production and also like a lot of interwoven like intricacies in the textures and really honest narrative storytelling and that grief and goof in her lyricism that gets me crying and laughing in the same song. Like that is the dream. One of my favorite artists is also Sharon Van Etten. And I love what she's doing right now with her band, The String Theory. That's so cool. And she seems to have that same ethos of, you know, as an artist, I really admire her, of having the people that you work with all rise with you and spotlighting them, not just yourself. It's not just a me game. And showing that gratitude for how many people it takes for the process, for the cake to be made. I love her music as well, but like as an artist, I love it. And she messaged me on Instagram this year when she heard a Philadelphia rag like covered my song Kerosene, and she saw it and listened to it and gave me a thumbs up. And so this like my most prized possession is like a chat, a personal DM chat with Sharon Van Etten where she says like, we'll meet each other out there someday. And I'm like, yes, please. I also have to talk about Feist. She's in the same canon of female artists that I look up to and who's doing something that is so experimental and freeing and in a weird way. I'm not sure if this is her intention, but it feels like it gives me permission to mess around in that way as well. And I don't have to be a flash in the pan. I can be this like experimental artist that like learns and grows and changes, and I don't need to stay in a box. You know, I can try whatever I want to, you know, and play with sound, play with music. Her performance this year, she really surprised me. She took the form of a regular gig and turned it on its head and surprised us all. And I can't remember the last time I saw somebody mess with the formula in such a fun way. And I was so happy to be tricked, you know? I was just it was so great. I was like, yeah, who says it has to look like this? Who says it has to be this way? the creativity has stepped outside of the production studio or the performance playing into the whole experience for the audience. And wow, what thoughtfulness. I really loved that. And then I'll have to say Andy Schauf is another big influence for me. He does something that I think is really brave, which is being quiet. The quiet intimacy of his performances that he's able to do, and the stillness that he has on stage when he performs. He does a funny thing where he doesn't feel the need to fill every space with sound. Like old school jazz heads will tell you, the rests are more important than the notes. He uses dark microphones on so many things, and I always feel like I'm stepping into a cozy bathtub anytime I put my headset on and listen to his works. And it seems like a very conscious decision. When he performs, he doesn't try to talk in between songs. He'll say, "Any questions?" It's just so delightful. Yeah. And his music, I mean, I used to listen to all the narrative story building. He's kind of a Randy Newman in that way, where he creates these characters, and the concept of the whole album is like, all right, you're at this party. Who's in the party with you? Each person gets a song. It actually reminds me of Edvard Grieg's piece where he allocated an instrument in the orchestral piece to a friend. I love to see that kind of leitmotif or thoughtfulness carried on in modern music. It's just, I don't know, it's such a joy hearing. And again, it's got me giggling while I'm walking, and then ear tickles and giggles, Love Andy Schauf. I can't remember, but he's also sort of a suburban guy that grew up on a classical instrument. For him, I think it was clarinet, woodwinds, which is why they appear so much on his work, who then expanded into being a full singer-songwriter. So I'm also like, I can do it too.
The podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message, what would you like to say?
Everybody just keep playing, in the sense of childhood play, it's hard, it's stressful, I'm trying to make a living from doing music right now, whichever point you're approaching it from. But if you can, just take a moment and remember to play and uplift those around you as much as you can, because it'll come back around eventually. But even if it doesn't, it feels good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.